This episode is brought to you by ChatGPT. Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. Have you guys heard about ChatGPT work? It's the new way to use ChatGPT for bigger multi-step projects. And when you need more than just answers, give ChatGPT work access to your apps and files, and it can create real work documents like spreadsheets, slides, and structured reports. Get started at chatgpt.com by selecting work mode, available on Plus and Pro plans.
British Spy Stories Season 7 Rogue Assassin Episode 8. On the third floor of the Novotel in Sofia, Gabby hammers on the hotel room door. "We have movement," she says, when Kate opens it. "Dominic is on the road to the airport. We'll follow. Get packed. Downstairs in the parking in 10 minutes. Gabby pushes the Aston Martin out of the city and towards Sofia International Airport, then stops in the short-term parking to call MI6 Central Control. "What's the latest, Marlin?" she says to the on-duty operations controller. "He's booked a ticket to London Heathrow, Gabby." "Book me one too, please, Marlin. I'll use my Sabrina Muller passport." Gabby refers to one of her 2 cover lives that MI6 provide for her to do her job, and therefore make it more difficult for anyone tracking her movements. Gabby turns to Kate. "He knows your face because of the restaurant, when you planted the tracker. So you take the car back to Berlin, then fly to London. I'll meet you there." Gabby steps out and Kate runs around the Aston. As she walks off towards the airport buildings, the V12 powers up, and the car roars away along the access road towards the A6 motorway to take Kate to Serbia and on to Germany. Gabby's flight is from Terminal 2, and she watches the tracer inside Dominic on her phone as he walks to the Aspire business class lounge to wait. She follows him there and is considering in her mind whether to approach the man and tell him that his cover is blown. There doesn't seem to be any obvious advantage for her to do this, however. They've never met, so she can pretend to be anyone, even herself. But revealing that MI6 know the Swiss intelligence service has an undercover resource near Arabella Cavendish may cause ripples in the intelligence community, and he may be useful in the future if he is close to Gabby's target. She puts the idea to talk to him out of her mind. She gets food, then sits in one corner of the lounge and starts to read The Berlin Game by Len Dayton that she bought in the airport. 3 hours later, the Airbus A320 lands in London. Gabby lets Dominic disembark before her, so she can watch where he goes as he leaves the airport, and continue her surveillance of him. They both only have hand luggage, so hurry through baggage reclaim. Dominic takes a set of back stairs that are nearly hidden through double doors on the left-hand side of one of the link corridors. He seems to be familiar with Heathrow as he moves at speed around corners and along shortcuts, and eventually he reaches the ticket barriers for the Elizabeth line. Her MI6 ID has a chip built into it that allows her into every city, metro and rail system in Europe. So she scans the card and the gates glide open. A train arrives and Dominic gets on board. Gabby takes a seat in the same carriage, but at the far end. Dominic stays firmly seated on the train, all the way to a station called Acton Main Line. Gabby is watching his every move so she isn't caught by the doors when he gets out. He stands up at the station, and she thinks this is it. But then he only changes seats, and the doors hiss shut again. She watches him. At the next station at Paddington, he remains in his seat, and the train hurtles underground. As it slows on the approach to Bond Street, Dominic stands again, and this time he waits by the doors. There are dozens of people on the platform waiting to board the train. All the doors open at once, and she uses the next set along from Dominic as he steps out. He turns right, and Gabby pushes through the crowd to get within 40 feet of the man. When he gets on a long escalator up to ground level, she moves to within 30 feet behind him. Dominic reaches the top of the moving stairs. There's a crowd of people waiting to go down, and he pushes through the queue. By the time Gabby walks through the row of people, Dominic has gone. She scans the crowd around her. 5 seconds go by. Gabby knows that the longer she loses contact with a target, the chance of reattaching to him drops exponentially with each second. 6 seconds. No sign. There are a dozen men in the crowd who could be him. 7 seconds. She spins full circle to catch sight. Then she sees him, over by the far wall. Dominic pulls at a metal door marked Private, and Gabby runs across and follows him inside. There's a short, straight passage ahead of her that ends in a sharp corner, but there's no sign of Dominic. She can't hear his footsteps either. Gabby runs like the wind to the corner, and only now can she see that there are 2 corridors splitting away, one to the left and one to the right. The lights go off on the right-hand route, and she can see that the place is illuminated with motion sensor switches. So she runs left. The corridor is lined with steel sheets that have no gaps or doors along its length. The lighting is stark and white, which makes her squint slightly. There's another corner and another long section. She continues at speed until finally there's a single door in an end wall. She has no weapon. Her fingers grasp the handle and push it down. The room beyond is unlit. There are no motion sensors here. She waits until the lights go off behind her, before she continues into the darkness. Gabby steps inside, and the door gently closes behind her. It's pitch black in the room. She waits for her pupils to adjust and give her more light in her eyes. She stretches one leg out before her and feels a solid floor under her foot. She steps forward. Her eyes gradually reveal one pale, rectangular glimmer of light. She moves towards this illumination. The glimmer is coming from a gap around a doorway. She digs her fingers into her jacket pocket and retrieves an optical fibre attachment for her MI6 phone. She pushes in the fibre and flicks to an app that lets her see what the end of the fibre is seeing. Gabby feeds the fibre through the gap between the door and the frame and watches the screen. Dominic is there, and he's talking to a man who Gabby doesn't know. She already has an earpiece in, and she selects the sound option to hear the words in the room between these 2 men. "How long, Peter?" says the man. "How long before we know what's going on?" The man is using Dominic's real name, not his cover name, Gabby notes. "She's difficult to pin down," says Dominic. "We're paying you good money, Peter. We don't want some old garbage about she's difficult to pin down. We need to know what she's planning." Gabby is recording the video stream through the fibre, so she can identify the man Dominic is talking to later on. "A week, Peter, no longer, or we'll have to act." "It'll be fine, don't worry. I've got it all covered." "I'm watching you, you know that," says the man. "You don't need to threaten me, okay?" he says. Gabby can see Dominic raise his fingers up, and for a second it looks as though he's going to get a handful of the man's coat. But he changes his mind. The man gives Dominic a playful, soft punch on the shoulder. Then he turns away and walks beyond the area that the fibre can clearly see. Gabby keeps her eyes on the screen as Dominic stands and thinks about what he's just heard. Then he turns back towards the door, and she moves like lightning to whip the fibre out of the gap. She can hear his footsteps walking fast towards her. She has no time to run. She stands stock still. as he pushes the door to get out. The steel touches her nose, and she holds her breath. She pushes back against the wall behind the door. Dominic doesn't stop, and he walks off along the corridor, then turns the corner. She waits for 10 seconds, then Gabby follows him. He walks out of the station and along Marylebone Lane. Then he crisscrosses through the back streets before disappearing into a terraced house in Wimpole Mews. She finds an alleyway near the flat and steps out of view to interrogate her phone. She confirms the position of the S43 tracker inside Dominic. The map shows that he is on the first floor of number 7, Wimpole Mews. Gabby copies a still from the video of the man who Dominic met at Bond Street and pastes it into the facial recognition app on her phone. The app starts to flick through MI6's library of terrorists, criminals, military personnel and politicians, as well as every known member of the British and foreign intelligence services. The phone buzzes with a match, and she looks at the screen. The name displayed is Conrad Wolfe, an enforcer for Noah Fisher, the man who Marwell was working for when she got sacked from MI6. Gabby walks out of the alleyway and onto Weymouth Street. She hails a black cab to go to the MI6 headquarters in Vauxhall Cross. In her room in the Ritz, Talgarth chooses a business suit. She pulls on a blonde wig and a pair of sunglasses, before dropping down to reception, then taking a taxi to Corston Street, on the north side of the Thames. She walks to a side entrance of the pub called the Morpeth Arms, and taps in a code to a panel next to a large oak door marked 2B Ponsonby Place. This is one of the access doorways to the Security Services tunnel network under London that allows field agents to move discreetly about the city. The tunnels have no official name, but are known to all as the UG. There's a spiral staircase down 2 levels, then she starts the 100-metre walk along the 200-year-old tunnel under the Thames that Brunel built here as a secret twin to his one at Rotherhithe. On the south bank there's a lift, and she calls the car, then leans into the iris scanner on the wall before it allows her to rise up to the 3rd floor. The doors open inside Vauxhall Cross, the MI6 headquarters. She walks to the operations suite that she and Riverside are using and goes inside. "That looks nasty," says Riverside, when she takes off her sunglasses. "I saw your report of the attack, but you didn't detail the injuries. Nothing broken, is there?" "Very nearly, but no," says Talgarth. "She was a professional." "You didn't ID her?" "No, it was dark." "It was either someone from your past or someone who doesn't want you near Miller," he says. "I've already asked Ops Control to run an analysis of my past ops," she says. "That should rank every major terrorist and criminal that I've been up against over the last 5 years. So let's see. For my money, it's more likely to be about Miller and the Delta 10 break-in," he says. "Which reminds me, we've got Gina's report." He walks to the conference table and picks up 2 printed booklets, then returns to stand near Talgarth. He hands one report to her, and they open their copies. "These are the 3 names that Gina has dug out who both have the cash and the influence to pay for the storage site break-in," he says. "Gert Janssen, Emilio Abrego, and Noah Fisher." They read the detail about the 3 men from the pages. "I've ordered 2 resources for surveillance for Janssen and Abrego, and I'll do Fisher because I know him. I'll fly to Salzburg this afternoon." "How do you know him?" she says. "I was in his gang, in deep cover, 3 years ago." "Does he have a connection to David Miller?" says Talgarth. "He didn't back then, but maybe he does now. Or he may have started new lines of business if his drugs trade was not enough for him, and maybe he wanted to try his hand at blackmailing Miller. As the Home Secretary controls customs and police, having him under your control would be a huge benefit to any one of these men." "I need to start reaping the benefits of my honey trap on Miller," she says. "I only gave it 3 weeks. I've got some influence, but it's limited. and will time expire, Rob. Stick close to him. When someone starts blackmailing him, you need to be at his side and get him to rely on you. It's late when Elsa Roth finishes her meal at Kerridge's on Northumberland Avenue. She has dined with a male escort, and she had been planning to take him back to her hotel. But she decides not to at the last moment and pays him off for the night as they sit at the table. He is gracious and leaves her on her own to finish her coffee. She walks out into the street and turns left and left again, into Great Scotland Yard, thinking that she'll get a cab on Whitehall to take her back to her hotel on Buckingham Gate. This side street is empty, despite its location at the very heart of the capital. After half a minute of near silence, she hears the whine of a moped behind her, but she ignores it as just another of the hundreds of delivery drivers in London. But the sound gets louder, and eventually she does turn to see where the bike is. And it's on the pavement coming straight for her. She freezes for a second, not knowing which way the bike will go. She decides on a direction and steps off the pavement into the road. Now a Range Rover, parked beside the curb 20 yards away, starts to move. It accelerates and also aims for her. Elsa moves further across the road, and the Range Rover realigns to keep her in the centre of its path. She starts to run now and reaches the other pavement. Elsa is right next to the wall, but the car is getting closer, and it mounts the pavement and speeds along only a few inches from the building. She decides that she can outmaneuver the SUV, so she darts out towards the refuge of the other pavement. The Range Rover puts on a burst of speed, and the driver turns sharply in the street. When it hits her, she can feel her feet leave the ground, as her body is pushed up into the air and onto the bonnet. Then she can feel herself bouncing off the windscreen. The car has not slowed since the impact. Elsa rolls to one side in the air, and she can see the edge of the bodywork coming before she tumbles to earth and cracks her head against the brickwork. Her body takes the brunt of the fall, and pain shudders into her limbs as she lays crumpled on the ground. She's conscious, but her mind rolls with the agony coming from everywhere. Elsa can hear the Range Rover stop, and the sound of running feet, before a voice is close to her ear. "Leave the blue fly stuff well alone, and we won't need to find you again." She tries to speak, but her throat declines the request. He turns and starts to walk away. Elsa's phone is lying on the ground a few inches from her hand. She uses all her remaining strength to lift it onto its side and push the video button as the man reaches the car. He slams the door and accelerates away. Slowly across her skin, the blood from her head seeps down across her forehead. She can feel it reach her eyes and crawl into her eyelids. Then the light fades. Catch up with Gabby on her new website, GabbyLaneSpy.com, and keep across the latest as Gabby Lane comes to a screen near you. Thanks for listening. This is British Spy Stories.
This episode is brought to you by ChatGPT. Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. Have you guys heard about ChatGPT work? It's the new way to use ChatGPT for bigger multi-step projects. And when you need more than just answers, give ChatGPT work access to your apps and files, and it can create real work documents like spreadsheets, slides, and structured reports. Get started at chatgpt.com by selecting work mode, available on Plus and Pro plans.